like I said, the inlet capture area can be smaller than the uh, diameter, the inlet diameter. Okay, so we'll see all the cases how it begins. So this is your first case when the aircraft is at zero velocity. Okay, when it is not at all moving, it will have infinite amount of boundary to gather air from. So these are your streamlines. Okay, so it has infinite amount of boundary to let air inside. Okay, for a small incremental velocity. So when it starts to run, the capture area will be reduced, not completely below the dia, but a little bigger. Okay, so from this area your aircraft is fed with air. So these are the streamlines. Okay, so when it's cruising at a higher velocity, now it becomes almost equal to the dia, and then your mass flow rate is going inside. So if this is your aircraft inlet and this is your compressor, the amount of air it can suck in is infinity, literally infinity. So the capture area is infinity when the aircraft is at zero. Okay, as in when you increase the aircraft speed, the capture area, the amount of air that can go inside the air inlet, will reduce. So it will come to a certain point that it will be lesser than the inlet diameter. So what happens, as in when you increase the speed, even though you are at high velocity, the mass flow rate reduces. Speaking of, the inlet is designed in such a way for the mass flow rate to reduce. Why? Because when you are taking off, okay, when you are taking off or landing, the mass flow rate you require is very huge. Okay, so the mass flow rate of air required for takeoff is very huge. So therefore you require more amount of air to come inside. Okay, just one second, someone is okay. So as you increase the speed, your capture area reduces, and then mass flow rate is also reduced. Like I said in previous class, there is the designing process. How it goes about is there is something called design point view and off design point view. Okay, so since this is a fixed inlet meaning this diameter won't change. So fixed inlet is once you design it, it will be the same throughout. Okay, you can't change it during any cruise conditions. So fixed inlet, since it is a fixed inlet, the maximum amount of work that you obtain from this inlet is during your cruising period. Okay, because the aircraft runs maximum amount of time in its cruising period, while landing and takeoff, it is very less compared to cruise period. So that is why the inlet would also be designed in such a way that the maximum efficiency or the maximum working condition that you require will be fixed at that point. So therefore, probably it is in these two stages, so in C and D. So therefore the inlet would be designed to provide at that speed and that much amount of mass flow rate. I'll repeat, during landing or takeoff, the mass flow rate you need or the thrust you need to generate is very huge, as opposed to the thrust that you need at high altitudes. Okay, so the inlet would be a fixed inlet, would be designed for cruise conditions because the airplane spends maximum amount of time in the cruise conditions. So to satisfy that, the inlet will be designed in such a way that it can have optimal mass flow rate to operate at that speed. Okay, so this is about the variation of capture area during flight conditions. Okay, just go through all this theory part. So we have dq is equal to du plus dou W. Correct. Also we have H. Also we have H is equal to U plus PV. Okay. So if we take dH is equal to du plus P dV plus V dP. So if we take these two terms, I mean, you have differentiated the enthalpy equation, that's all. There is nothing much going on here. For
Sir, turn on the mic, sir. Can't able to listen.
okay, sorry. Okay guys, so we have this equation on this side, and we have other equation, Q is equal to U, sorry, dQ is equal to U plus dW, or sorry, du plus dW. Okay, this is your first law, and this is your enthalpy equation, and this is once you have differentiated that. So, and the one more equation you have is, that is specific. So specific heat C is equal to the amount of heat you add, dQ, divided by change in temperature, dt. Okay, so you have these many equations. Once you're done with all of this, okay, the next what you do, at constant pressure, your dH equation will become dH is equal to du plus P dV, because dP at constant pressure will become 0. Correct. So then that will imply dH is equal to du plus P dV is nothing but your dou W. So du plus dou W, that is dH is equal to dQ. Okay, for constant pressure process. So similarly, for a constant volume process, what you'll have for a constant volume, dQ will only be equal to du, because dou W is 0. At constant volume, work done is 0. So having these two substitution, your Cp, sorry, your C will now become C is equal to, so at constant volume C is Cv. Cv is equal to dQ is what? du divided by dt, and at constant pressure Cp is equal to dH by dt. Understood these two, have you derived? So hope you understood how you got this equation. Cp is equal to dH by T, Cv is equal to du by T. So once you've gotten to that point, next thing what you need is your stagnation point. So since yesterday I've been stressing on stagnation point, I'll just write the definition here. Stagnation point is a point in a flow field as in something where a fluid is moving. Okay, is a point in flow field where the velocity becomes completely zero by an adiabatic process. Okay, so any sort of flow, if you have, so if you have any flow, so let us say so let us say you have some fluid element and you drop something in the center and all of the fluid is going in, but at this point the compression, sorry, at this point all of the molecules will come and collide it, and one of the molecule will be stuck there and the velocity of that will be equal to 0. Okay, at this process, at that point of the molecule, you call it as a stagnation point, where the velocity became 0 through adiabatic compression. Okay, so you are not using any other process, so you are not using any temperature process, you are not using any heat addition, or you are not using any I mean, there is no any process involved, only adiabatic process. This point becomes 0, so at that point you call it a stagnation point, and the corresponding temperature and the corresponding pressure and the corresponding density are the respective stagnation temperature, pressure and density, and so on. Okay, now coming back to our internal flow. So like I said, when the aircraft is going at a very high speed, the capture area is very small. Okay, at a very low speed, the capture area is very huge. So if at all you look at this, this will be like a nozzle or a diffuser. So like, you know, nozzle is an mechanical body where you accelerate or you increase the velocity. A diffuser is a body where you decrease the velocity and correspondingly the pressure. Okay, so if you have a nozzle diffuser arrangement, so let us take this to be a nozzle diffuser. Okay, so this one is a nozzle and this is a diffuser. Okay, so if your inlet area is very small compared to your outlet area, what happens if one molecule is coming inside? The velocity will reduce, that is your velocity V, whereas your pressure will increase. Okay, so diffuser, what it does, it will reduce the velocity and increase the pressure. But what about your nozzle? Nozzle should increase the velocity and decrease the pressure. So this is how a nozzle and diffuser works. So for this to exist, you should have two surface areas. Okay, if the surface area at the inlet is small, the velocity will decrease. The surface area at the outlet is small, the velocity will increase. Okay, so with that same phenomena, you can see the capture area here is smaller and here is bigger. So this will act like a diffuser. So once you come here, the velocity will decrease. Okay, from this point to this point. So from point A to point 1, velocity will decrease and pressure will increase. So therefore you have from point A to 1 an increase in velocity, and from 1 to 2 it is adiabatic compression. So therefore 1 to 2 is your adiabatic compression. Okay, now these are your, so this is on a TS diagram, so this is your temperature versus entropy diagram. So on a temperature versus entropy diagram, your pressure lines are drawn across. So pressure at point A is drawn like this, and pressure at point 1 is drawn like this, and pressure at point 2 is drawn like this. Okay. So these 2 points are the points of your stagnation pressure. Okay. So for an adiabatic process 1 to 2, the stagnation point is at 0 to here. So this is your stagnation pressure line for this point. Okay. And this is your stagnation pressure point if the process was isentropic. Okay. Isentropic meaning if it was reversible adiabatic. So if there was reversible adiabatic, the process would have been completely straight line because there is no any losses. Therefore entropy will become 0, change in entropy will become 0, the pressure will go and directly hit your stagnation pressure point P naught A. Okay, but you can see A to 1, it's a straight line because there is no losses happening outside of the compressor, which is an external compression. So therefore this is a complete isentropic process. A to 1 is a straight line. So this is in the case when the flight is in cruise condition, when the see, you can see high speed or low mass flow rate. Whereas this is the case when your aircraft is trying to take off. So these line will remain same. Okay, the straight line A1 0, but we'll see how it varies. So now if you see the capture area is very big compared to inlet area. So now this will act like a nozzle. So this will act like a nozzle. So when it is coming from A to 1, from point A to 1, your velocity will increase, your pressure will decrease. Okay, so your pressure will decrease and consequently temperature should decrease. So therefore it will begin from A to 1. So A to 1, your pressure is decreasing. From 1 to 2 is your usual adiabatic compression. 1 to 2 is a adiabatic compression at a line of point P2. Okay, and then this would be the stagnation pressure point for this process. So therefore this is your stagnation pressure line. If it was completely isentropic, this would be your stagnation point, and the path it would have followed is like this. Okay, so with this I would like to define right now something what is called isentropic efficiency, and then we'll do more work on it. So if you just see this diagram, so isentropic efficiency. Okay, so when you have a process, okay, going in when you have an adiabatic process, you'll define what is the amount of isentropic work that you could have gotten out of the actual work. So here the actual work is from 1 to 2. Okay, but your isentropic work would be 1 to this stagnation point. So therefore your isentropic efficiency here would be H2, which is your actual work, minus H1 from where you began, divided by the total work. So this would be H02, so stagnation pressure point 2 where you begin, and this is your H0A minus H1. Okay, so here this point if you take, that is here, and this point if you take, that is here. So your actual work is from 1 to this point, but your isentropic work is from this point to this point. So isentropic efficiency defines how much of work you got done, but how much of work could have been done. So actual work divided by ideal work. This is your isentropic definition. But what we know, dH is equal to C delta T, correct, from the first derivation what we obtained. So since C is constant, if you take out all the ratio, this can be directly equated to their corresponding temperatures. okay, with that idea. So this will be equal to T0A minus T1. Also, if you simply look at this, so if you take so if you take this, see the difference between this line and this line and this line and this line. So this is your actual work, and this is your actual work, and the other one is your total work. So these two difference is what will define as an isentropic efficiency. Okay, for now you remember that. Later on we'll see in the performance part how we'll make use of it. Okay, hope you're clear with it so far. This is when at an altitude in your cruise condition, and this is when you're trying to land or take off. Okay, so next, see how to see the variation. This is during your takeoff. Pressure, because this is acting like a nozzle now, this portion is acting like a nozzle, velocity will increase, and inside it will be constant. Therefore correspondingly your pressure should decrease and then it will increase. Whereas your stagnation point, okay, since this is completely isentropic, here it will be a straight line, and here you lose your stagnation pressure point. Okay, so your main aim is to get this point, the second point what you have P02, as low as possible, that is as straight as possible. Okay, when you lose this pressure, you should not lose this pressure. So this process, not losing this pressure is called as pressure recovery. So stagnation pressure recovery from 0,1 to 0,2. So how much ever you reduce this to a straight line, your efficiency will be that good. Okay, so this is called pressure recovery. This point, getting the stagnation point to a least value from its actual value, is called as pressure recovery. That is having to technically speaking, that you should not have any losses. Okay, if you see at this portion, your velocity, so this will act like a diffuser. Velocity will reduce, and inside it will further reduce, but pressure initially it will increase, and then further again it will increase. Your stagnation point here deviates much more. Okay, now we'll speak of external compression. So far what we saw, how the compression is happening internally. Okay, we did consider externally, but here we'll see in detail what are the things happening to an external compression. Okay, so in an external compression, you'll lose the air. When you have an external flow, so when you have this flow, when the capture area becomes very small, you'll have something called flow separation. Flow separation is when the airflow will detach from the surface. Okay, so the airflow will detach from the surface, as in stalling. I mean, stalling, you can't relate that to this. So basically meaning that the flow won't attract to the surface. Okay, the flow is detached from the surface, you call it as flow separation. So in that case, when the when the capture area becomes very small, you'll have what is called as flow separation. So if you see the streamline here, it is trying to form a vertex. So therefore, this will not allow, this will reduce the mass flow rate furthermore, and that is not good for your compressor. Okay, so that is called flow separation. And in external flow, we'll try to see how the flow separation occurs. So if you see a fixed inlet, there are three regions for external separation to occur. First is this point. So the streamline of flow which does not come inside the inlet at all, so they'll just simply come here and go outside of it. So this is called spillage. Okay, so spillage as in like the English general word, that everything is spilling out of it, so it is not at all coming inside. So that is called spillage. So this spillage will cause a flow separation. Okay, and then the second point is the lip of this cowl. So at this point, like how I said, so the flow will come here and it will detach from this body and try to form a vertex here. Okay, so this region there is again flow separation, and then one more flow separation that will occur is on the hub. So this will be your hub of your inlet. So on this hub, then again flow separation can occur at this point. So these are the 3 points where your flow separation can occur, and they affect differently. So if you see, if a spillage occurs, so this will increase overall drag on the cowl. So for you, if your spillage, so if at all, let us say there is more amount of flow going over the aircraft and there is flow separation occurring here, this will increase the drag, overall drag on the cowl, that is the engine itself. So external deceleration, pre-entry compression devoid of losses. So like if on this spillage will also influence your pressure recovery. Okay, so your stagnation pressure will reduce to much of it, and this is a trade-off between external and internal deceleration. So like I said, when you design this, you'll have to keep that in mind. What is the required amount of capture area that you'll keep, and then because of this capture area, how the flow will influence the internal and external compression. Okay, ideally speaking, the capture area must be equal to the diameter of the inlet. So once you have this one, it is set to work at maximum efficiency. Okay, just read this whole theory part. So like I said, if you want to see what is the performance parameters, so to evaluate okay whether this is working properly or how much of it is correct, sorry, how much of work that you're able to get in, you'll have three things to look at. One is your isentropic efficiency, stagnation pressure ratio or pressure recovery, and distortion coefficient. So isentropic efficiency of the inlet. So like I said, isentropic efficiency of the inlet, again we'll take back to our actual process, and then we'll take isentropic efficiency eta d is equal to hs0 to s minus ha, that is from the point where you started, then again to the ideal stagnation enthalpy minus to the point where you started. So if you see 0 to s, so from this point to this point, 0 to s is your actual stagnation point. So a to this one, so hs0 to s minus ha divided by h0 naught a divided by ha. Okay, I think I should keep this parallelly. Okay, so your stagnation enthalpy, isentropic efficiency is given by, if you draw this line, and then you have this pressure line 0 to a. 1 second, so that will be here, and this point is here. So this is your actual work, and this is your total work that could have been obtained. This is your actual work, and this is your isentropic work. So h0 to s minus ha divided by h0a minus ha. Okay, so if you further evaluate it, like I said, since dh is equal to cp dt, okay, so if you take ratios of this c will get cancelled, so dh will become equal to dt. So you can directly equate this dh to t terms. So once you equate it to t terms, and stagnation pressure ratio or the pressure recovery is nothing but the ratio between these two. Okay, so that is P02 divided by P0A. Okay, so this gap, so this difference is, I mean, your stagnation point could have been this, but it is here right now because of all the losses. Okay, so this is your pressure recovery term. So how much of it was lost? Okay, if you further evaluate this term, the efficiency term, you'll get the efficiency is equal to so much. So the efficiency will become 1 plus gamma minus 1 by 2 m square divided by the stagnation pressure ratio minus 1 to the power gamma minus 1 by gamma divided by gamma minus 1 by 2 divided by m square. So how do you get at this point is, you get at this point, like yesterday we had one derivation which is not important for your syllabus point of view, but you should know forever, is what I said. So if you take stagnation temperature to the actual temperature will be equal to 1 plus gamma minus 1 divided by 2 into Mach square. So we saw this derivation. So if you see, this is again stagnation temperatures, correct? So you try to deduce this using this, and also you had the relation T naught by T is equal to P naught by P. So how do you relate this? Not any I mean, if you just simply relate temperature and pressure, it is given by gamma minus 1 by gamma. So using these two relation, you will deduce this isentropic efficiency to this one. The derivation is not important. You just know, I mean, even if you know this is quite enough. Just know how it can be obtained. Okay. So we were speaking, so we had diffuser performance, which is defined by isentropic efficiency, stagnation pressure ratio or pressure recovery, and distortion coefficient. So last term is distortion coefficient. Distortion coefficient is nothing but how uniform the flow is. Okay, so if you have, so if this is your inlet, how uniform the flow is going inside, or how laminar or how turbulent the flow is. If it is turbulent, the efficiency will come down. If it is laminar, it is quite smooth, so the efficiency is increased. Okay, so distortion coefficient will define, that is one of the performance parameter to find the overall efficiency of a diffuser. Okay, so with that said, your subsonic inlet portions is covered, but one thing we left out is the derivation part, which we'll directly see now in your any questions so far? Any question, or you want me to repeat something? Module 2. Where did it go? Okay, so you have one derivation in here. Probably all of you can take a book and then solve it parallelly. When I'll solve it in here. So the derivation is called relation between minimum area ratio in terms of external deceleration. So that is UI by UA. So external deceleration ratio is the difference in between the velocity that is going outside to the velocity that is going inside. So probably outside velocity will always be higher, but inside velocity will be lesser because of the diffusing action. Okay, and minimum area ratio is the ratio between inlet and the outlet of the what is this? Inlet and outlet of the inlet, meaning the diffuser. Okay, so now I wanted to write this in a pen. Anyways, it's okay, I'll just explain it here. You guys have a book and then take this diagram first. Okay, so first we'll define all the values. What is the inlet area? So this is A inlet, AI area of inlet at the entry, and A2 is the inlet of at the exit, and UA is the free stream velocity, and that is also the velocity at which the spillage is occurring, and UI is the velocity just when it is entering into the intake. I'll use the word intake from now on. Intake as in your diffuser. Okay, so now what we know on a 2D sketch is that the overall force acting because of these three places, so one is here, one is here outside, and one is this one, correct? So you have three surface area to face. One is your spillage area, and your inlet area, and your mass flow rate area, correct? So if you take that, so if you see this, the mass flow rate, whatever that is going inside, let us call it as MI. Okay, the mass flow rate that is finally ultimately coming out, we'll call it as ME. Okay, and the mass flow rate that is going outside, we call it as M dot S, so spillage area. Okay, even though MI and ME will be equal, we'll just write them separately to denote force terms. So if you take the force equation, or the thrust in which direction it is moving, so your thrust or force is given by MI, and MS is in the same direction, the spillage, correct? So MI UI, that is velocity at that point, and MS UA, that is velocity of the spillage, minus, because this is sorry, one second, this is going in this direction, but this is relative to M1, so to calculate this should be negative. Okay, so MI UI MS in this direction, and ME is negative. I hope you're writing it down parallelly so that you can understand. But what we know from continuity is that mass flow rate is equal to rho AV. So from continuity equation we know that mass flow rate is equal to rho AV. So by making that substitution for MI will be what? Rho, density is common, we are not speaking of supersonic flow, so therefore density is common, rho UI and AI, that is your inlet area. So rho UI AI will become mass flow rate. Since UI is multiplied again, it will become square. MS, you keep it like that, where there is another expansion for it. And your MU EU is rho, whatever is going outside is U2, so U2 and A maximum, because the square is, sorry, the area is A maximum, so A max. So these two equation, if you have any doubt, just raise it as soon as you didn't understand. So hope you got these two equations. Okay, now since we don't know what is MSUA, one thing we know, so if you consider it as a 3D body, mass flow in spillage, okay, mass flow in spillage will be equal to, so what you'll do here an assumption, that is whatever the mass, so if you take this as whole system to be outside system, so if you take the whole system to be rho and with a velocity star velocity ua, that is the velocity of free stream, star the Amax. Okay, so if at all, because Amax is not defined, okay, so let us take this one assumption just to understand it correctly. We don't know the value of Amax, so if at all Amax extends to an infinite value that is covering the whole outside boundary, so whatever flow that is going inside of this minus the mass flow that is going through here will be your spillage, rho star ui, that is your inside, star then your ai. Understood? Very important. So if you take a maximum, okay, see here, a maximum here is actually supposed to be u2, but you don't take it as u2 since a maximum is not defined. If you take a maximum to be any infinite value, whatever the flow that is going inside of this minus this should be your spillage. Any doubts? Okay, I think you understood. So we'll make this substitution to this ms. So once you make that substitution to this ms, so you'll now have the overall equation will now be, since again ua and ui is all squared, so force is equal to this term, and here ua is ua square, and here ui minus ua, because here ua, so you have ui, so ui minus ua into ai minus rho ua square a max, so this term. Okay, is there anything we can cancel? I think ui, okay, this term got cancelled. Rho ua square a max minus rho ua square a max. Only term remaining is rho ui square ai minus this term minus rho ui ua ai. Okay, so therefore your total momentum force, whatever you have right now, is equal to rho ai, taking rho ai common, ui square minus ui ua. So this is your momentum thrust. Okay, and again if you have momentum thrust, correspondingly you have surface areas, you have inlet ai, max, and the whole thing. So therefore that should also consequently contribute to something called pressure force. Okay, so that pressure force, so you'll have pressure on the surface, that is the outer body, so you take that pressure to be as ps, and pressure at inlet as p1, and the pressure at exit as pa, or which is the entry pressure also, so pa. Okay, so if you try to take all the pressure forces, so the pressure force fs can be now written as 1 at this point, that is pa into a max, because at the outlet the pressure will almost be equal to the inlet, so pa minus a max, sorry, pa into a max minus the inlet pressure piai minus the surface pressure on this surface. So we don't know the surface value, we'll just take it as ps into di, we don't know the surface, area value, we'll integrate it from ai to a max, whatever the maximum area it is going, so ai to a max. So we'll just write this expression, just write it down up until there. So hope you understood. So this was your thrust force, and this is your pressure force. So once you have got it, what you'll do, you'll integrate this PS. So PA max minus PI AI minus PS max plus PS AI. Okay, so once you've integrated that, what you'll do, you'll take Amax common out here. So PA minus PS into Amax minus AI into PI minus PS. So AI and Amax common you have taken, you have ended up at this equation. Okay, so now what you'll do, for this term you'll add plus PA and minus PA on the second term. So once you add plus PA and minus PA, what you can do, you can further take out PA minus PS. So you'll take PA minus PS outside. So what you'll do, PA minus PS from this, and you'll separate out AI into PI minus PA. So you're separating out PA minus PA. Got it? PA minus PS into AI minus AI into PI minus PA. So now what happened? I'll just take this kniping. So if you look at these two terms, this term and this term, it looks like, or it can be written as an integration form of PA minus PS into DA if you integrate it from AI minus Amax. Correct? So this term is clubbed as one term at all. So if you integrate it back, so if you want to integrate this, since this is a common, DA will be what? Amax minus AI. So Amax minus AI will get multiplied. So you are just making that small substitution. Okay. So now you have this. So now you obtain this. This was your pressure force, and that was your thrust force. Correct. So the overall contribution of the force direction is same. Be it pressure or be it thrust will be in the same direction. So therefore what you'll do, you'll equate this equation with your momentum equation. Sorry, not momentum equation. The moment force and pressure force. So when you equate both of it, what will happen? So you'll keep this in one side, AI Amax into PS minus PDA one side. You'll take this to the other side. So this will become plus AI into PI minus PA. Got it? I hope you guys understood so far. So once you have got, you set aside this value. So if you see this term, PA and AI is associated here. Okay. And PS and Amax is associated this term. So if you take the overall geometry of the inlet, this difference in force will drive the propeller in this direction. So you're going back, so literally, so this is your thrust component being generated at these 2 points. So what you'll take, since it's a 2D component, you'll just take it as the change in thrust at these 2 components at the direction I. So therefore you'll equate it to delta Ti, where this is the thrust component in your 2D direction I. Okay. Understood? So now, again, you have two areas, you've got your force equation. Now you will try to apply your Bernoulli's equation. So Bernoulli's equation will be your energy equation. So Bernoulli's equation at these two pressure points Pi and Pa will be given as, so your by default your Bernoulli's equation is what? Where is the text? So your Bernoulli's equation is P plus half, I'll just take it as 1 by 2. 1 by 2 rho V square is equal to C. So this is your Bernoulli's equation. If you apply your Bernoulli's equation at these 2 points, so at first point what you'll have, Pi plus half rho V square is Ui square is equal to the other portion. Okay, that is Pa plus half rho U2 square, sorry, Ua square. Okay, so with that substitution, what we can do, we'll enter it to your 1 second, equating 9 and 8. Okay, okay, Pi minus Pa. So if you see here, you have here Pi minus Pa. So for this Pi minus Pa, you'll substitute in this equation. Okay, so Pi minus Pa will now become Ua square by 2 minus Ui square by 2 into rho. Rho was there by default. So if you take this one, rho Ua square minus U1 square by 2 into Ai. Correct? Are you guys all with me so far? Okay. So then, I think there is some substitution here. Don't take common out right now. Okay, 1 second. I've just made a simpler simplification here. I'll just see. Okay, he didn't explain here correctly like what is happening. I'll just show you here in my phone. So what you do, you guys multiply this rho A inside, sorry, not that rho A inside, half, okay, 1 second, you just make the substitution. So I'll take half rho, here Ai and A1 is one and the same, so Ai completely common out. So you take everything out. So what you'll have inside is Ui square minus why don't I use capital? Ui square minus Ui Ua. Okay, then you'll have plus U A square minus ui square. So this is what you'll have, correct? But this half was taken out, so this will be whole thing divided by 2. This will be whole thing divided by 2. Or else let's not take the half out. Once again, let's not take the half out. We'll just keep it here, divided by 2, divided by 2. Correct? Hope you are understanding. So now what you have, ui square and ui minus ui square half. So what that will imply, so in your next line, you have your rho I is equal to, rho I into, so here it is like 1 minus 0.5. So therefore it is again 0.5. So ui to the power 2 divided by 2 minus ui ua plus u a square divided by 2. Now you take 2 common out. So while taking half common out, if you take half common out, 1 by 2 rho ai will now be ui to the power 2 minus, so since there is no half here, it will become 2 ui ua plus u a to the power 2. So if you look at this, this is looking like a square minus 2ab plus b square. So that will give, so let us just keep it like that. I mean, rho, it is understood. Next is you'll have ui square, ui minus ua the whole square. Okay, so that is what happens here. So if you take, so I'll just write it, half rho ai. So after this step, what you will do, you take ua common out. So in this, if you take ua common out, you'll have half rho ai. Taking ua common out will, because that is squared, no, you're dividing the whole thing by ua. One sec, what is being done here? Ui minus ua square. No, sorry. Inside this, you divide by ua minus ua. Somebody who did on the minus ua. No, it is supposed to be, I think one mistake what I did was ui square minus ui ua plus, okay, my mistake. What I did was here, this, if you see it is minus ui plus ua square by 2, okay, minus ui square, but here it is negative minus ui. It should actually be like this, because ua is greater, it should be ua minus ui square. Some sign mistake I have done here. Just see, it should come like this. Ua square by 2 minus ui square by 2. Okay. ui square minus ui square by 2 ui minus ui square by 2, so ui square will become ui square. ua minus one minus ui by, so if you take, one second, let me check my book. 2 ua square, okay. Okay, we'll just I'll just write the whole derivation again in my book and then send you guys, just know that. So this whole term ua is taken out here common. So once ua is taken out here, you bring the whole equation this side. So once you bring the whole equation this side, what will be left out is 1 minus ui by ua the whole square. So one thing what we know, so half rho v square. By default, if you take half rho v square, I'll just keep it here for time being. I'll tell you what is the importance of this. So now what you'll do, the average pressure difference on the outer surface on the nacelle, PA minus PI. Okay. I think he has equated from the previous equation. So we also know what is what. Okay, I think one confusion what he has done here is, this is one equation. Okay, the other equation is this. So you have two equations for Ti now. So taking this, what he has done, he has substituted that. Okay, the average pressure difference on the outer surface on the nacelle is equal to del Ti. This integration is what? A max minus AI. So A max minus AI. This he has taken common. So PA minus PS. If you bring it down on the other side, or if you take the integration, so this will become delta Ti divided by integration AI A max dA. So delta Ti divided by A max AI is equal to PA minus PS. Okay, so and S is the surface where S is a factor between 0 and 1. So how much of surface that you are actually touching? So if you have, this is your surface. Okay, so your flow might not be completely on the surface. Okay, so you know the area is going from 1 to AI to A max, but your flow will vary from these 2 points. So if you take 0 to 1 as integral point, okay, so you'll introduce a factor here called S, so that we can differentiate how much of it is actually touching it. So you'll introduce a factor here S, so that S can vary between 0 to 1. So delta Ti will now be equal to S into PA minus S. One second. PA minus PS, that is, anyways, PA minus PI into A max minus AI into S. So this delta S and this delta S. So these two equation, whatever you have, you'll substitute here. So this delta Ti you'll substitute here. So that will have S into PA minus P minimum, A max into A min is equal to 1 minus Ui by Ua the whole square divided by your half rho AVA square. So like I said, the significance of this term before, half rho V square is nothing but your dynamic pressure. So if you take any quantity and then divide it by your dynamic pressure, that will become the coefficient of that quantity. So if you take not velocity, if you take pressure and divide it by half rho V square, so that will become your coefficient of pressure. So similarly, what you'll do, PA minus Pmin, you'll divide by this term. So that will yield you the pressure coefficient Cp. Okay. So now your equation is further reduced to S Cp A max minus again this A max by AI. He has taken AI common. Sorry, he has divided by AI. So that will become minus 1 is equal to 1 minus ui by ua the whole square. Okay, your actual formula is only so much, but here you can see he has introduced another term, ua square by u max square. So ua square by u max square. So the velocity, so how we begin with, so this is your u max square. Okay, so like I said, depending on your a max, okay, if your a max is infinite, that will become u max, but it is very small, that will become ua. So within these two limits, again ua square by u max. So again this will become a factor which is varying from 0 to 1. So I'll introduce that term in here. So he'll divide it by that term and he'll send this on the other side, and then rearranging everything, he'll just write a max by a1 is equal to 1 plus 1 minus ui by ua square divided by SCP u max ua by whole square. Okay, so that will complete your derivation, which is supposed to be for 12 marks or 10 marks. So it is quite a repeated question. So just follow this. He is quite, there is a lot of confusion in this derivation, so I'll write it in my own book and then submit it to you guys. You guys follow that. Hope you understood. I think we'll stop here. And there is one more confusion here, like what is this, how did you get 1 minus ui by ua? I'll try to sort it out while I'm writing. So you just follow that. Okay.